Hi guys, Jordan from JS Academy. Really what we're looking at today is the first of the series of the live videos. I want to start something quite commercial and I'm going to look at long layers, specifically square type of layers, okay? What we're going to look at is actually two haircuts on the same head, and we're going to look at one half using a concave layer, which is very similar to a square layer, and the other side we're going to do a really classic square layer, and we're going to show you them both. I always call the concave layer my cheat. If I'm running behind or I'm a bit late and I need to get through a haircut quick and I need to get that particular shape in, I always look at the concave layer as a really quick fix. So that's sort of what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at really commercial hair, things that are, you know, nothing too avant-garde. Hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll look towards some more maybe out there. The dolly heads are great because they don't argue ever, they will let you cut whatever. So without further ado, you can see the model, or the dolly's head is pre-shampooed and conditioned. These dolly heads are fantastic for cutting on. If you want to have a look at this, you can see they have a really nice fall, so you can cut fringes. They don't do what most dolly heads do, which is sort of stick up in the air, and they work really well. Now I do find just at the back here when you're trying to cut a graduated bob, they have a bit of a funny pattern there, but apart from that they're absolutely brilliant. They're great for doing sort of fashion cuts, and this particular dolly head isn't actually made of real hair, it's made from silk proteins, which makes it really super smooth and soft. You don't get the comb caught up and tangled in it, so it's a lovely head. I have to say it's really great to work on. I don't know about you guys, but I like using something in hair. I think it helps keep the moisture in the hair and it helps keep the porosity even. So I always like using something in the hair before or during cutting. Now, as I say, if anybody joins, please feel free to ask questions. As I said, that's a little bit of smooth control. Some people use spray leave-in protein sprays and things like that. I actually like creams to leave in because it means that when you come to blow dry the hair, the cream has really been distributed through the hair really, really well. And depending on the cream will depend whether or not, I suppose, it makes the hair sticky or residuary. But what I'm using contains no silicons or anything like that, so they don't weigh the hair down at all. So let's have a look. First section I'm going to do. So for both of these haircuts, we start in essentially the same way. We start with a central profile section running from nose to nape. Okay, so combing all the hair back. Now, guys, I don't have the advantage of a mirror here, so I will find it a little bit difficult to find center. So if I am badly off, please let me know. But I'm going to try and get it centered as much as possible. So there we are. Central profile section. The section shouldn't really be any bigger than the width of your finger, and it's going to be our first central guide. And from this section, everything else is going to come. So right through, taking through. And it's really important that we get this section correct. So you can see there's our central profile section. If I bring the head down a little bit, you can see that quite clearly. Okay. If there's anything that anybody needs to ask questions of, or you know, why am I doing something, or what is the reason for it, please, you know, feel free to ask. So taking the first section up, I'm going to have a look at the hair. I'm going to see where the shortest parts are. Now, this particular doll's head has a previous haircut in it, and I know that there's shorter areas in it, so I'm going to actually try and cut it to those shorter areas in through the back, which is sort of, can you see? Which is sort of to about there. So actually we're going to be getting a reasonably short layer today. So with that in mind, let's take my first section. So I always like to section with the wider teeth of the comb and then actually comb up to cut with the other side. So coming through and just cutting a nice square line. Let's get rid of some of that hair. If you've got a lot of hair, it's fine to actually make a first cut. Now, if I turn it around for this section, that'll allow you to see easier. So there you go. Nice clean straight line. As you can see, I am at home. I'm following the quarantine advice and staying at home. So we've had a really exciting day today. I have got up early in the morning and done star jumps and all sorts of things with Joe Wicks, which was rather exciting. And I've been doing a bit of homeschooling with my daughter, and we've been doing exercising and mathematics and all sorts of things. So it's been really great. And then I've been preparing for obviously today, for the video, working through. So yeah, it's I have to say, it's a worrisome time, but I'm really feeling positive in the fact that I'm going to get to do a lot of things that I've been meaning to do for a long time and I haven't got the chance. So that's the first section coming through. I'm going to work back down into the back of the head. So say we're going to do 2 haircuts in this doll's head. Both haircuts are reasonably similar, but they produce slightly different results. So a true square layer, which is what I'm going to do on one side, will not allow you to leave or maintain as much length, whereas the concave layer that we will do on the other side will actually allow you to achieve maximum length at the end. Okay, so that's the first section. That's our guide done. Okay, so what I want to do is come through and I want to split that section into 2, and that's me ready for my next part of my haircut. So depending on what you're going to do, your section will obviously change, but today on this side we're going to do the square layer, and on this side we're going to do the concave layer. And the square layer will be perfectly square, whereas the concave will sort of do this, sort of get longer towards the edges. Okay? So, starting through the side, I'm going to section off and then turn around and let you see. So, essentially like a hot cross bun section. And let me turn this doll's head around so you can see your centre parting, your hot cross bun, and then working from there. So if I section here, I've got a guide from here, so I'm going to come from here and I'm going to work in orange peel segments around the head. And if you're not seeing this perfectly, please let me know. I'll try and move the angle for you. So, trying to get my body position so as I can see you and keep it where it should be. You can see this is the square layer. Keeping your elbows and your hands at a nice angle. Double checking. Dropping that section. Taking half of the old and half of the new. Lifting straight up and trying to keep your body posture as straight as possible. And there you can see working through. So let that drop. We're going to take half of the old section off and half of the new, and just work around in sections. So this is one of our classic haircuts. It's one of the first haircuts we probably learn in college, but it still is really useful. I mean, it probably is done on a daily basis within hair salons for people who look for slightly shorter layers, so they want a little bit of a heavier layering system, but they want to maintain length. This is a perfect section and technique for them. So again, half of the old, half of the new. And you can see I'm keeping my sections reasonably small. Working up. If you can hear snoring in the background, it's our dog. It's not me. So again, holding up. Now, just to let you know, usually when I'm doing this haircut, I'm standing directly at the back always, but because we're trying to get you to be able to see, I'm obviously standing towards the front. But usually my body position will be at the back. And can you see the guide? There we are. So, coming through, try and get your arms as square as possible. Some people like to let go of their section and then cut. I think it's nicer to actually keep your tension so as you know that what you're working on is correct. But again, you know, I'm a great believer in hairdressing. There's no such thing as right and wrong in how you get to an outcome. There's simply a good outcome or a bad outcome. And you know, you can use broken bottles or glass, or I've even seen some guys use axes to cut hair, and if it gets the desired result, well, you know what, that's all that matters. The result is always the most important thing in hairdressing. It's not always the technique. That's not to say that we shouldn't try and practice good technique as well. There we go, working through. And you can see I'm now straight with my sections. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the doll's head around and I'm going to come into the position that I would normally be. And if I show you here, I've came from the back and I've worked like a clock until I've worked straight. From this point, I'm then going to work the whole way through until I get to the last section. This last section has the recession area in most people, and that last section I'm going to over direct back to the previous section so as we maintain a little bit of weight through there. Okay, if I turn our doll around, there we are. So I can now work straight through to the front. A little bit of the old, half of the new. So half the old, half the new. Keeping your sections reasonably small and precise. There's my guide, coming through and cutting through. You can see I'm holding my fingers quite high up, my arms quite high up. I'm keeping my posture. I think that's really important when doing your hairdressing, is to keep really good posture. And you can see as I'm letting the hair drop how short the layers are, but how long the baseline is. This really does allow you to work with ladies. You know, ladies who really want a bit of volume, but they don't necessarily want to lose all their length. This is an absolutely fantastic technique. As I say, it's a classic haircut. It's not an overly complicated haircut, but it works really well. Again, another thing that I find really helps my hair cutting is never cutting past the knuckle. If I show you, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I have really bad tension in my fingers and there's big gaps, so I actually have to cross my fingers over slightly to get good tension. But you can see even with that, there's still a big hole in there, so I never actually cut past my knuckle, and I find that really helps. When I used to cut past my knuckle, I used to find that my line used to go lovely and straight where the tension was, and then I'd get a longer bit and then shorter and longer, so I would find these little bumps in my cutting. So what really helped me through that was not cutting past my knuckle. So next section, and again, if there's any questions or you know, anything you want, if there's anybody watching, give us a shout out from where you are. It'd be great, let me know. So again, not past the knuckle, next section, and through. And let's say today we're starting off with a really nice commercial technique. We're going to look at the same haircut, well, roughly the same haircut, but done in two different sides. So we're going to look at concave layers here, and then a true classic square on this side. And we'll look at the difference of it as well, why we would cut it. And you know, the main reason for cutting the square layer as opposed to the concave is balance. So the square layer will create a more balanced haircut, whereas the concave will create slightly less balance, because you're going to get a much longer perimeter and a much shorter interior. Coming through, and you can see we're approaching the last sections. Okay, so this is my last section in this side. What I'm going to do, can you see this section is still there? So I'm not going to take half of the old and half of the new. I'm going to use that last section, and I'm going to over direct everything back in towards that last section. And you can see what we've got is just that last part coming out. So, coming through, and that's us basically at the end. Let's just double check the edges here, make sure there's nothing. And that's us. So, if we have a look at this side, you can see straight away. Look, if I do that, look at how flat that stays. Look at how much more volume. Look. So with that extra weight, it really holds it down, whereas with the layers, the shorter layers, you can see it really helps to give the volume in there. Okay? So that is your classic square layer. Okay? What we're going to now look at is, you know when you have ran behind with your last client and you have 15 minutes literally to cut a haircut? We're going to look at that now. So this is a concave layer. It isn't necessarily designed to be just a quick, easy haircut, but it is. It's really quick and easy, and it gives roughly the same desired effect as we've done on the other side. So starting off, we start off slightly differently. We begin using a diagonal forward section, and we are going to, if I just move around, we are going to cut and over direct to ourselves to the center and bring it up. Okay, so each section gets over directed into the center, so you can see that we're really going to get a much longer perimeter than the other side. So hence I said a little bit more balanced. This haircut, through the back anyway, can be used quite convincingly for the mullet. And I know, believe it or not, the mullet is making a comeback. The last time mullets were in fashion was mid-90s, I think. But yeah, the mullet is coming back into fashion. So this is a really great haircut to take really short in the crown and then really over direct up and then leave all that length through here, so you get a really mullet type effect. So, you know, you can adapt this really well. So that was my first section. My second section comes slightly back, and again diagonal forward, so you can see that section, and pulling up. So same thing again, always making sure that you're pulling to the center, you're not cutting past your knuckles, so that you don't get lumps and bumps, you keep good tension. Now having said that, if you have really good fingers and you get really great tension across it, well then by all means, you know, you can continue to cut on. But for me personally, I just found that cutting past my knuckles really didn't do my haircuts any favours. So working right through, And you can see that's our second section coming through. We're going to come again 1 inch, so about a finger's depth back, and we're going to work right through. So diagonal forward sections the whole way through. And all of this hair again is going to get lifted up to the center point and over directed. Now, as I said, if my balance is off, please let me know, because I don't have a mirror. I don't have the luxury of having a mirror here to have a look at what's happening. And there we are. Now, depending on the client's hair, if she has 3 hairs in a wisp, what you actually can do is almost take half the head at each go, and it makes it really quick that way, but I don't recommend that. So, working through, up to your center point, and following your guide. Scissor wise, I like using slightly longer scissors for this type of haircut. When I would do graduations or things like that, I will probably use maybe a 5.5, but for this type of haircut I actually like a slightly bigger scissor, and I'm using a 6.8, just under a 7 for this. And I would change my scissors depending on the haircut. I also change my comb quite a lot depending on the haircut as well. This is my favourite comb in the world, it's the Concave, and you can see it's got a lovely curve which really helps with your ergonomics. So it's not just your scissors that do it, you've got your comb doing it as well, and it's a really great wee comb. So working up through, get your central profile line, working up and taking off the excess. Coming back through to double check your work. There we are, 1 bit missed. Take a little bit off, and coming further back. Again, using really nice clean sectioning. Coming right through to your point, up to the center, and then cutting through. So what you will see, when I finish this, I will hold both sides up, and you'll see that one side is sort of a concave shape, gets longer towards that side, and the other side is really quite straight. So that's that section. Now I'm going to work again, further inch out, and I'm going to work to sort of the top of the ear. So if I hold this up, you should be able to see my sectioning now. So if I turn around, you can see working now to the ear. And coming through. So we're coming close to the end of the cut. Lifting up, cutting through, and next section. So I'm coming really down behind the back of the head now, working through to the top of the ear this time, and you can see all the hair comes up. It is amazing how short the hair can look, and then how long it actually becomes when you let the hair down. So that section there, give it a wee twist and leave it there. Making sure to comb out the back of the hair, and again same thing, working square. So you can see both haircuts are sort of similar in the fact that you're working to a square line all the time. It's just the difference is in this one, you're using an awful lot of over direction, so the haircut becomes concave as opposed to flat. And they have their benefits. So this is more extreme. If you want to get shorter and longer, this is a more extreme version. And you can see there's very little coming off now.
Oh, here's someone saying hi from Palm Coast, Florida.
Oh, hi. I hope the weather's a bit better in Florida than it is here. So last section, I'm going to work through, and if I just turn the doll's head around, you can see that's my section. Now I'm actually going to keep the doll's head there for you and lift straight up. Oh. So let's clean that out a little bit. Lifting directly up. Now this last section or two is where it can get a little bit awkward. You do have a lot of hair in your hands, but really and truly there shouldn't be much coming off. All of these front sections are cut, so you only need to be working and concentrating on this back section right now. The whole front is already cut. That can actually be left out of the way. And you're literally working on these back sections. And you just keep working down until all of the hair has been taken up. So you can see I can actually take that out of the way, take the next section, and hold on, let me get that clean. So taking the next section right through and lifting up. And you can see essentially we have nothing to come off. So that is both of our sides done. Let's have a look at how they compare and contrast. So if I bring that down, if I lift the section this way and lift up, what we should find is we get that shape there. Okay? So we've went from shorter to longer. If I lift up the other side, it should be a flatter shape. So lifting up, and you can see there, that's a really flat shape. This side, you have much more length on the outside. Okay, so that is two ways to do the same haircut. You have your concave side and you have your true flat square side. So just to recap on that, okay, I'm going to go back through and explain, I suppose, what we did. So for both haircuts you start exactly the same way. You start with a central, let me check, central profile line from nose to nape. Okay, so that's your first section there. That is then cut in for your guide, flat, and then depending on what you want to do, whether you want more length on the perimeter and shorter in the interior, you will either use your flat layer, your square layer, or you will use your concave layer. Okay, concave layers work diagonal forward and over directing up into the center to here, the whole way through, and the square layers work straight down through the head and are lifted directly up with no over direction, like so. Okay, so that is us finished. I'm not going to show you the blow dry because I don't really think with this haircut you need to. I will describe what I'll do. So this haircut, when I would go to finish, I would probably look at areas of weight. So I would work across the top of the head and I would probably come in and I would deep point cut through the hair just to move the weight, because this area here is where everything has been brought to and it's probably going to be the heaviest part of the hair. So I would just work through like so. Okay, coming through, removing weight. If you wanted to do a little bit more, you could actually scoop out, okay, depending on the finish you want.